Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, is in the news again. No, we're not going to talk about him mobilizing members of the PDP yesterday, where they gathered and held a quick meeting concerning ensuring that there's a boycott of the convention in August. But this time, it's about the FCTA minister who has issued a bold threat of shutting down 34 embassies in Abuja over unpaid ground rent. According to reports, embassies collectively owe over 3.6 billion naira in ground rent, some dating back as far as 2014.
The FCTA administration had given a 14-day grace period, which expired today, June 9th. And now the hammer could drop anytime. I mean, this expired yesterday, I beg your pardon, June 9th. Now, has the minister threatened to revoke land titles and enforce penalties ranging from 2 million naira to 3 million naira per embassy? Is this a necessary enforcement of financial obligation, or could this lead to diplomatic disputes if not carefully handled? Joining us to discuss this development and its likely implications is Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We hear reports that some embassies, including Russia, Turkey, and Germany, claim they've paid their dues and are wrongly listed. Are we looking at a breakdown of diplomatic relations as a result of this? How do you foresee the implications of what this might mean?
You know, this is really interesting, and also it sounds like a child's play. You said the outstanding rent is 3-point-something million naira. Are you talking about naira? Are you talking about dollars? Because if it's 3-point-something million naira, that's like 2,000 or something dollars. And how can such an amount lead to a minister, going and painting on the embassy's, gate or posting something? I mean, how did we get to this sort of situation? Wasn't there an earlier correspondence contacting, the embassy people and say, hey, you are past due and your stuff, or you take them to court? But it just shows there's a mismanagement of mismanagement practices for you now to not go to the door and have the media and doing the stuff. I'm sure Nigeria should be embarrassed by this sort of behavior. If the minister of Wike is doing something like this, it shouldn't get here, because it's not an overnight something. If this is something that has gone on for years, and now all of a sudden you are physically doing what you're doing, I mean, Nigeria should be ashamed for something like this.
All right, human rights lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, has also jumped in on this. He has currently warned the FCT minister not to try it because it would yield diplomatic problems, according to his statement. But let me also ask, and just for point of correction, it's 3.6 billion naira,
okay.
Cumulative sum. Yes, that's what the FCT minister indeed doled out, 3.6 billion naira. However, do you think there should have been other ways to have communicated this issue, especially to the embassies, before bringing it out to the public? And what would this do to the image perception, especially for Nigeria?
Well, again, like I said, even if it's 3-point-something billion, we're not talking about dollars. I mean, it's not a whole lot of money in terms of, what is outstanding. What matters is here now is the efforts to collect. So this debt is not owed one day. It has been there for as long as it has been. Was there some correspondence? Was there effort made, sent to the ambassador or whomever is head of the property issue for the particular embassy? Wike or the FCT should have to show this effort to collect before they get in. And how is it that 34 or 38 of them refuse to pay? So gotta get to the bottom of why the refusal. Is it because they say we are not supposed to pay? Or is it because, the amount being asked to, ask them to pay, they said, no, it's too much or too little? There's got to be some of these things. You shouldn't get to this sort of, embarrassment. I mean, the embassy people will be looking at it and looking at Nigeria and say, what sort of government, what sort of leadership do you have to where you couldn't have resolved this matter and now making it a public display of nuisance?
Okay, so how do you propose that this be sorted? I mean, you said that Nigerians should be embarrassed if he goes ahead with this. The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations guarantees the inviolability of embassy premises. If Nigeria moves forward with closure, you've said that it should be an embarrassment. Many wonder if this will not be a violation of the international law and if this will not have its own international backlash. So now that we are where we are, how do you propose that this can be dealt with differently?
Let me sort of kind of give you an example of myself. After the 9/11 attack on the U.S., I was one of 9 people selected nationwide to do site selection for new American embassies. At that time, I was given an assignment in Sri Lanka, Mexico, and Benin Republic. So for U.S. people usually own the embassy. Okay, so they are not listing it. They may list orders for certain people, but for the embassy compound itself, they usually own it. So is Nigeria giving this or gave these 34 embassies ground lease? Is it on the ground lease or on the building itself? In that order, you have established, okay, who pays what, when do they pay it? So how long has this thing been outstanding? Is it 1 year, 2 years? How come it's 34 embassies? Wike should be able to have showed correspondence from the time his administration has been in office, and that is what, 2 years. So was this something before the 2 years of his administration, or is this after? So we gotta be able to show this stuff, and then there are gonna be ways to do this. What I'm just saying, this is not like you go to your tenement building and you're trying to evict your own tenant because of not paying you. These are embassies, and Nigeria is the host to these embassies. So if Nigeria is gonna come out and put up this sort of public display of whatever, either poor management or administration of facilities for embassies, then the egg is on Nigeria. It's not going to be on them. So, who is in charge of FCT is going to be the president. Is the president allowing him to do this? Wike, again, should be able to have showed memos, efforts. Before you evict somebody, you should have given them enough notice for them to do it. I mean, look at the people writing something on the gate of embassies. That's not just good. That's not just good.
The president, I mean, you spoke about the president, but what we're saying is that the president's intervention is basically to ensure that they gave a 14-day notice, and that the 14-day notice ended on the 9th of June. What other sort of intervention would you have expected from the president?
Okay, what I'm saying, 14 days after, okay? 14 days after then the president came in and said, okay, let me give you a grace period of 14 days. I'm saying before these 14 days, what was the effort? Wike should have, prepared memos to hand to the press and say, this is what we have tried to do. They have ignored it. As a result, then what would have again done is you call the ambassador. You invited the ambassador to have a discussion. There are ways you're going to manage this kind of thing so that both sides, don't feel like you are being childish. So my question again is, has any of these things been done? That's the question should be asked Wike. Has he made effort to reach the embassy? Because the ambassador is the head of the mission. Hey, Mr. Ambassador, your country is behind, the grant payment. We need to collect, and we're giving you this period of time to do it. If not, what you don't even have to do. I mean, what you have to do in this kind of state is just shut them down. Don't provide them whatever security is supposed to do, but not to go to their gate and start painting on it and posting signs. I mean, again, I'm in real estate. We do these things, and when you're dealing with, because every country where their embassy is supposedly is protected, and you shouldn't just go in there and start painting on their gates. It's basically what I'm saying. Now again, who is going to be the joker in this whole process? Is Nigeria. It's not them. It's Nigeria, and it's not going to be good. The goodwill of Nigeria is being tarnished, by a conduct of somebody who should have done it differently. The president should not allow, any of his ministers to behave in a way that will bring, a disrepute to Nigeria. Nigeria image is already tarnished, good. So now you're doing something that is going to add more negative impact on that tarnished image. That's not good. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
There are always this thing could have been done.
Okay, in your conversation, you had mentioned that you were also given the responsibility or the task to scout for embassies for the United States in Mexico, not forgetting to Benin Republic. Could you share with us, is it part process that an embassy is able or would owe a federal government of the land a certain amount for a certain period of time? Is that the same case, especially for the United States of America? And if not, do you think it's something that would warrant an FCT minister like Wike to act just the way he's done?
So how long has this debt been owed?
Since 2014.
Okay? I'm sorry?
Since 2014.
So 2014, so that is how many years ago? 11 years ago. So Wike just jumping on it. Maybe Wike, at the time he became minister, should have started this question, writing memos, say, hey, you guys are past due. A debt is a debt. So you want to collect. So did he start when they were sworn in as minister? Because, the Tinubu administration has been in office for 2 years. So when did he start making this effort? And how come the previous administration never pursued this? You should, again, this is where you go to the ambassador. You go in there and you seek a meeting, or you send your people to go and ask, send a letter, a demand notice. Usually in America, when you want to evict somebody, you send them a demand notice. And then you make all efforts, what they call good faith efforts to collect. After that, then you go to court, and then the court will now say, okay, hey, Mr. Tenant, you haven't been able to meet the obligation of your tenancy, you're going to be evicted. And when that eviction is, they're going to send the constable. The constable is going to be the one armed with the paper that show up, and then they're going to throw you out. So it's not where you just have your own people painting on that. They won't. So Nigeria should have sent, people of either the army or the police or whomever does that thing, and go to the embassy, say you guys are going to go, or put a chain on it, just lock them out. So I'm just saying, what has happened to the point of people showing up at the embassy gate?
Well, at the end, we're looking at the international impact and Nigeria's image. That's why you're here as a global affairs analyst. But to wrap things up, we'd like you to wear the hat of a Nigerian, of course, in this part. The question simply is, right before the FCT minister, there was another FCT minister who was saddled with the responsibility of managing and taking charge of the affairs of every single thing such as this. I'm talking about Mr. Mohammed Musa Bello. Do you think at this point, since 2014, do you think the FCT minister may have fallen short, the previous one, may have fallen short in taking charge of his duties, which has now led to the current FCT minister trying to ensure that he covers up for that fall?
Yes, and if you look at the time span, he said 2014, obviously that was Jonathan's time. And then after Jonathan, you had Buhari. Is it not? And then here we are. So the question is, how did the administrations overlook this stuff? The embassy should not be to where they are behind in their payment, because this is not like your regular tenant, occupying your space. So did Nigeria lease the land to them, is the question, or did the embassies buy, You know, they bought it, I mean, they got the ground lease, and then they built the building, because those are two different things. You know, did Nigeria build the building for the embassies, and then they're occupying and not paying, or the Nigeria granted them the land lease, and now they default in the land lease, but the embassies own the building. So these are some of the things that needs to be understood, and then at the same time, they go back, to make sure that this thing doesn't happen again. And how you do it, you straighten whatever the management thing is. In America, for instance, who owns our public buildings? For the embassies, is foreign building operations. Those are the ones under the State Department that handle the embassies. But for other ones, is the GSA, the General Services Administration. So, but it's still going to come down to a tenancy agreement, and that tenancy is it on the land? I'm giving you this land. I'm going to designate the embassy role, and then you're going to come in and build the building yourself. At the time, if you ever shut down the embassy, then you could sell the building direct to the Nigerian government that now decide to do whatever they want to it. Because embassy buildings are not like your regular buildings. They have their own flags there. They have, sensitive issues, in that embassy building. In fact, it's a protected environment, that gives them the title. Somebody has referred it to Geneva Convention and stuff. But the thing is, how come it took 11 years for Wike? Maybe Wike is not being proactive, but he's being proactive on the wrong foot, because he should have called the, in fact, this thing should even make a public specter. He shouldn't have gotten to this point. But since he has gotten to this point, now it's got to be damage control. And those of you that are in the media, you know what it is. How do you manage this thing now? So Nigeria again is going to be the joker in this whole process. How come this is here? But maybe there he has a plausible reasons for it. But whatever the reason is, the cat is already out of the bag, and then we're going to now see how to manage it.
Okpa, thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing your thoughts on what might be the implication if this is carried out. We would, of course, continue to keep up to date with what's happening in the FCTA regarding these embassies as well. Thank you for your time, and have a lovely night.